Good evening and welcome to all of you who are joining us on Making the Case this evening. We're glad you can join us. Tonight we're going to go straight into our discussion for this evening because, the hour flies by so quickly when I'm on this program. And tonight I am joined by my guest, Member of Parliament, Mr. Joseph Hamilton. He is no stranger to making the case. Joe, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. I know we have a very serious issue we have to discuss tonight, but with you here, it will also be an entertaining and informative discussion for those who are joining us. Tonight, we will be talking about the Guyana International Petroleum Exhibition, commonly known as GPEX. This is an exhibition that begins tomorrow, November 20th, and runs for 2 days until Friday, the 22nd. Joe, the theme for this exhibition is the gateway to a golden future. But it begs the question, a golden future for whom? Who are the real beneficiaries of this exhibition?
Susan, we thought it important to speak to the Guyanese people about this conference. I am sure that most of the people in Guyana, they don't even know this conference is taking place. That's the first point. Second point is that this conference is held in Guyana. We'll be discussing how our oil proceeds will be farmed out and who will get what now and in the future. As they go through the next couple of days, whatever they say, whatever they do, will not in any way affect in a positive way the ordinary person, the child that lives in Sophia, live in West Rumpelt, live in Port Morant or Maiconi, wherever, because the people who will be gathering there, they will be having discussions and seeking to put in place future plans for their shareholders and the company that they represent. And so that is the framework where this is Guyana Oil will be discussing, they will be discussing our oil, our gas in our country at our Marriott. But the government will have there a minimal role. It will be overtaken by the expatriates, this 3-day conference. We are told that the entrance fee, registration fee to just participate in this conference is $2,500 Guyana dollars.
US dollars.
US dollars. 2,500 US dollars. However you calculate it at 220, 230, whichever number.
It's more than half a million Guyana dollars. Yeah.
And that is only the beginning. So that will exclude any small company in this country participating in this conference, where they have to dole out just to register to eat some buns and whatever cocktail, over $500,000. That's the first point. The second point is, if they need to set up a booth there, the cost is 8,000 US dollars. So in totality, for a Guyanese company and small companies who might have some innovation, some promotion that you want to put out to international audience, you think about it, where would that small company find 8 plus 2, 10,500 US dollars to participate in a 3-day conference that is being held in his or her country to discuss the oil proceeds that belong to him and his descendants. And so that is the framework this conference is being held in. And we thought it useful and important for the ordinary Guyanese man who, as I said when I started, might not even know that this conference is happening.
Yes.
You know, this conference reminds me of Susan, and for persons who are students of history. In 1884, 1885, the European colonizers sat down and they determined how Africa must be split up and which country will take that part of Africa. You know, what they call the Berlin Conference. They end up and they made what Africa is to do with 50 countries. It is the European colonizers sat down and they determined how we going to split this country up based on the resources it has and who will get what.
And the English will get, who the
yeah,
French will get.
where the French, right.
Right.
Which countries the English would get, which resources they would have access to, which resources the Germans and so. So this conference reminds me of 1884, 1885. And it is useful for the Guyanese people to have an understanding what is happening in their country. So that's why we come to the people tonight to speak to them, and we will continue to speak through the period on this matter.
Now, before we move on, I see you have an invitation there. Tell our viewers about what exactly you are invited as a member of Parliament.
Well, the important thing too, and this is the invitation, as when the program started, Susan introduced me as a member of Parliament. I mean, we are the leading politicians in this country. We are the lawmakers of this country. And we have an invitation sent to us via the Ministry of the Presidency, Department of Energy. It says, this invitation admits one to the formal opening ceremony only. So here you have the lawmakers, the people who were members of the legislature of this country, the people who were entrusted by the citizens of this country to make laws on their behalf, to put in place plans and programs for the development of this country. This conference is being held, and the people who are responsible for holding this conference, inclusive of the Department of Energy, they just thought that the legislators, the member of parliaments, they weren't worthy to even participate in the discussion. I mean, the opening is nothing, because there would be no discussion about how the proceeds of the oil and gas sector will be distributed across this country and who will get what in the future. And so this government, they have ceded all authority on this matter, and that is what is important to note. They have ceded all authority on this important matter, on this asset that belongs to us, to foreigners, to other people. And as we go along, we will recap, of course, about the agreements that they have signed. So this is following on the agreements that were signed by the government with the oil companies. And so not even the people's representative will be allowed to participate in the discussions about the oil and gas sector.
Right, and a large section of our population, more than half, we could say now, of our population is represented by the People's Progressive Party. And you're only invited to the opening ceremony. Now, you mentioned the contracts. We have seen the abhorrent contracts negotiated and signed by the APNU AFC coalition. And to compound the deficiencies of the contracts, we still have no local content policy. What are young Guyanese professionals supposed to look forward to?
Well, the thing is, you know, it begs the question, does this Granger caretaker government cares about Guyanese? That is a question we have to ask. Do they care, or just that members in the government, they just care about themselves and they are hooking up their own private deals. Because when you look at what is happening regarding the matter you raise, you had a guy from Trinidad who got wide expertise in this matter. He came and he did the first draft of this local content legislation. And for whatever reason, at the time, one Dominic Gaskin was the Minister of Business. And the government, the Granger government, they saw it fit not to utilize that draft. And they went and they got an expatriate to do another draft. A man who was working with the oil company just months before he was hired to do this local content.
Final draft.
The final draft. And that is vastly different to what the Trinidadian compatriot draft was, where in his draft he laid out things that are important to us, how we benefit. The expatriate draft expunged all of those things and allowed only for the international investor to basically benefit primarily. So the draft, the final draft as they call it, it's not a local content legislation anymore. It's an international content because it is skewed in a way whereby the benefits coming out of this local content arrangement will be derived by the other people and not us Guyanese. I saw today, I think I was reading some news, and it says 600 Guyanese companies are participating in the oil and gas sector. I mean, that is the biggest joke and laugh. Two things, Susan. One, if you remember the last time ExxonMobil put out a list of companies that they're interacting with, of 200, I think at that time it was 200 something companies, but included was the taxi man.
Yeah.
Included was the woman who sell bhaji and baigan at the market.
Included were some people who came out and said they were not.
Right.
Consulted.
So
Yeah.
now you have the number I saw today somewhere, saying 600 companies.
It's actually on the website. I
Okay.
checked it.
600 companies. You can have, let us say, for once and for argument's sake, you have 600 companies. That we know the man who's selling baigan and bhaji cannot be categorized as a company. But Exxon and the oil companies and their cronies here, they want to inflate it to show that there's great benefit. The point is, you can have 600 companies, but in money terms, it means nothing.
Yes.
It is how much money invested. So yes, you can have 600 companies, and that is questionable because the last time, if we go by what they put out the last time, when they had the taxi man that was utilized, and the person who they buy mango from and all the kind of thing was in this list, we go back to, that is not local content. Local content is participating integrally in the sector. That is what it is all about. Via training, jobs, our businesses participating robustly in all the activities that will happen and are happening in the oil and gas sector. And I don't know where the 600 companies, and you live here. You're a young person. I'm far beyond being young. And we interact with people here daily. And of course, we would have known,
Right.
you know.
And people are struggling to even keep their doors open.
Yeah.
That's just to pay an entrance fee of
Yes.
$2,500 US dollars. Now, going back a little bit, Joe, to the example, the story you just told about the British consultant. I have spoken about that several times on this program, because as a young professional myself, I am offended that we still have no local content policy, no framework, nothing in place over 4 years later, since 2015. And you know, if our government is taking recommendations and advice from persons who are aligned with the oil companies, who is looking after our interests? Who is negotiating on behalf of the ordinary Guyanese? And sorry.
You know, just to mention, just a couple of weeks ago, I reading an international article where the former head of the International Monetary Fund, she's advising third world countries, so to speak, not to be caught up anymore with utilizing foreign companies and expatriates as consultants, because her conclusion is that they are useless. All you do is pay them money, because you have in your country people who are intimately involved in your country, who are citizens, who have a greater idea, better idea and understanding of all the matters in your country. So you don't have to bring expatriate to do it. And so this expatriate guy who was aligned, and you know what, the question you asked, who is looking out for the Guyanese person? People, because here you have the government, the Granger government, the Minister of Business, they knew beforehand that this guy worked for one of the oil people involved in the oil and gas industry, and yet they took him to do this. What do you expect? You think he can do a local content a draft legislation that benefits us? Of course he will do it to benefit his master, who might be still paying him, even though he's being paid, I think it's $23 million or Guyana dollars, I think this man was paid to do this final draft of this local content legislation. So that is where we're at, and whilst we're doing all of that, the man who took sole responsibility for the oil and gas sector, remember we were told that it was taken away from Mr. Trotman, and now one David Granger, he took total responsibility at the Ministry of the Presidency for the oil and gas sector. He is wandering and dreaming around the place. He is yet to say to the Guyanese people, yet to tell us about what is the policy framework that the government has regarding oil and gas sector.
Yeah, I was coming to that because he was on a radio program, and the moderator asked him very pointedly, how are Guyanese going to benefit from oil? And he went into this aloof discussion about sovereign wealth fund and about the Department of Energy and how they have a structure, they've established a structure. You know, if you're asking a question, how will Guyanese benefit? You will expect to hear things about education, about training, you know, about how they plan to protect workers. We got none of that. This guy, David Granger, is far removed. I'm not sure if to say he doesn't understand what is happening or he doesn't care.
Well, you know, you just mentioned employment. We have had news reports, and we have interacted with persons who work with these companies, the contractors to the oil company. For Guyanese persons, just last week, Mr. Granger and Jordan, they were boasting about the minimum wage in the public sector has increased to $70,000 per month. You know, they were boasting. What they didn't tell you, and we will tell you tonight, they have people working on these oil boats out there for $72,000 a month, working 12-hour shift a day, and sometime more than 12 hours. If that ain't slavery, I don't know what is that. Think about it. This man is away from his family because when you're on the boat there, you don't come home and go to work every morning. You have to be out there in the sea for 28 straight days. And the working hours, a 12-hour shift for $72,000. All the Gaff, Granger, and Jordan giving us last week about people working for that. Why they don't give us a remedy for that? For that, this slavery that has
a private attorney had to take them to court.
Yeah, $72,000 for 12-hour shift of 28 days, and these guys, they have people who work out of town, teachers, nurses, and there is an allowance given to them if you're working in Region 1, 7, 8, 9. And you have this oil company people, they have our brothers and sisters working out there for $72,000. No allowance beyond this $72,000. If that ain't slavery, what is? And the government who boasts how much they care about Guyanese people, they're yet to utter one word. This matter came to the fore months ago.
Yes.
The Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Social Protection, the Office of the President, Mr. Granger himself, none of the people in the government, the Attorney General, none of them who is a legal advisor to the government, they are yet to speak about this slavery, this modern day slavery that our brothers and sisters have to deal with. And you have a situation where the same job our people are doing and a Trinidadian person doing, and they're getting 6 and 7 times and 10 times more wage and salary.
With the same terms of reference.
With the same terms of reference, the same job. So the question you asked earlier, who is looking out for us? This government apparently don't care a damn about what is happening.
But Joe, these guys are also compromised. So they cannot go to these oil companies and say, look, you have to do better, or you have to protect Guyanese people, because they are so compromised.
Well, the point is, it started with the big, when they were taking up to Houston to eat and dine and whatever, and so you don't know.
And the first 18 million
that
disappeared.
That disappeared. They're yet to appear back. And I see they saying the other day, Jordan boasting, it is now in the consolidated fund. Now, I mean, since you got it, Chief, it should have been in the consolidated fund.
But they went from denying that they even received.
Right. He said it's somebody's imagination and so.
Yes, right.
So what we're seeing is that, Susan, from the inception, everything that has happened in this oil and gas industry with this Granger cabal, it is not in the interest of the Guyanese people. That is a fundamental issue, and people must pay attention to that. And we have so many examples, I don't want to go into them, whereby countries who have been exporting oil forever. I can point right now to Nigeria, 71 years they're in this business. And the poverty rate there is 50-something%. So all this excitement people sometimes get about all this oil. It's not, I have always said, it's not the oil, it's who manages the oil.
Right.
We have Venezuela just across there. They got the largest known oil reserve, and people are eating their pets to survive.
We have all these examples right there in our backyard.
Yeah. So the issue about, don't get excited about the oil, how much barrel per day. It is the management of the proceeds that come out of the barrel per day. That is what.
Now, Joe, the Department of Energy, in association with this company Valiant, is organizing this event. The people of this country deserve to know about this company.
Well, the thing is, First thing, there's Granger Cabal. Granger and his Cabal, they like to speak about transparency and accountability. You know, and they used to speak about that a lot before
Right.
2015. You would note that transparency, accountability, those words have gone out of their vocabulary. They don't make speeches anymore using those words. But the point is that you have this company handpicked. Our information is that the chief cook and bottle washer of the Valiant is one of the daughters of the present Minister of Natural Resources. And they're the lead person, the company, in this GIPEX Expo activity. The Ministry, the Department of Energy is just playing a secondary role in the whole arrangement. The leading entity is the Valiant Group that was not elected, selected rather, anyway via a transparent process. And that's the point. You would want to think that the way you do this is that you have a tendering process to allow for a company with the best CV that can give you the best output. That is how it should be done, but in this case, it was not done that way. This company was handpicked because of relationship, I suspect, and they are the ones who will be shepherding this exhibition the next 2 or 3 days, beginning tomorrow. Of course, they are the ones I suspect will be responsible for collecting the $2,500 registration fee and the $8,000 US booth fee. And just think about it, Susan. You cast your mind and think about how many Guyanese company can pay, even in good times, when they were doing good under the PP, could pay that type of money for a 2-day conference. Much less this time now. Now when they have to send home staff and when they have to minimize their importation of stuff and so, where are they going to find this type of money?
The playing field is clearly not level. That it was not designed. The point is, this exhibition was not designed to benefit Guyanese companies. This is a wholesale mass giveaway to foreigners, giving away our patrimony. But coming back to transparency and accountability, which is what they love those two words pre-2015, not so much now. What is happening with all of this money that is being collected? We have not been informed about any provision or any framework for the collection of these monies. You have $2,500 US entrance fee, 8,000 booth fee. What is happening to this money? Who is this money going to?
Well, I suspect the organizer of the conference, the Valiant Company, will be responsible for all of these monies, and of course, when they don't take out all their money for whatever expenses, the question is, it's a question I don't know who can answer it. Where the money will go, how the money will be distributed that is being collected. Will the Department of Energy have access to any of these resources? We don't know those questions. We don't know the answer to those questions. One, Dr. Bino, who again, sometimes when the guy speaks, you're wondering, when he speaks, I'm telling you, just a couple of weeks ago, some statement he made, and my head was spinning. When he said that, he said the first 1,000,000 barrel of oil, if you recall, will go to Exxon, and then we will have our second million. And he went on to say, the information he has gotten is that the first 1,000,000 barrel of oil the first oil would have a lot of impurities. I mean, imagine that. I mean, you really believe, Susan? I mean,
This is the guy
listen.
who's in charge
Yeah. He said, somebody tell him that, listen, the reason why Exxon is taking the first million is because they have refineries, and the first million barrel, the first pump, will have a lot of impurities. You really believe? If you really believe that Exxon will take the first million barrel of oil, that they're likely to lose a lot on because of the impurities, you should not be heading the Department of Energy, because Exxon will not operate like that, where they will give you the second barrel with less impurities, where you will make more money than them in the first million barrel. But that is what was said by the head of the Department of Energy. And he said that he had no authentic information from no source. He is told, I suspect he was told by Exxon, that that is how the thing's supposed to happen. So all the happiness about when force oil is going to start pumping for the Guyanese people, you will not get force oil. You imagine that, We wouldn't get force oil. We own the oil, but we wouldn't get the force oil. The force oil is going to Houston, maybe at the refinery at ExxonMobil, the first million barrel, according to the head of the Department of Energy, Dr. Bynum. So maybe he can explain to the Guyanese people what is the expected financial returns from the conference, this exhibition, how many booths you're likely to have there, an entrance fee, and what is the sum total of US dollars they have already collected, and where and how it will be utilized. Maybe he can, and he should say that to the Guyanese people.
But this guy Bino is known for his outrageous statements, so I don't take him seriously. He's a laughing stock. Now, Joe, on a more positive note, the PPP supports and encourages investments. But the people of this country want to know, they want to be assured that the next government will put the interests of our people first. What is the PPP's position on this?
Well, the first thing we have to go back to look at, before we go forward, you have to go back, because you have Granger them signing a ridiculous contract, firstly, with ExxonMobil, 2% royalty, no ring fencing, and I'll explain in a moment so people could understand what that means. The most ridiculous part of the contract is where we as member parliaments, we cannot pass any law henceforth to regulate Exxon. So I mean, a man who's a lawyer would sit down and sign something like that, where a company has taken away the right of the sovereign state to pass any law that supersedes the terms of the contract. Secondly, or thirdly, we will pay ExxonMobil taxes. That is the government of Guyana. So from the 50-50 split of oil, we have an expense to pay for ExxonMobil. All their local taxes we have to pay, the government of Guyana. So it doesn't end up as 50-50 anymore if you have to pay the taxes. And of course you have outstanding there the $460 million unaccounted, 460 million US dollars we have to pay for their exploration expenses, as they call it. Nobody is anywhere the wiser at the Department of Energy or the Office of the President as to how this 460 million US dollars, they just have to take ExxonMobil word for it. So, and you think that was bad enough, 1 year after that ridiculous contract, the Granger government signed a contract with Tullow That is ridiculous. Twice the time of ExxonMobil.
As though we didn't learn anything.
Yeah, it's like you didn't learn anything, or you don't care a damn about the Guyanese people, because all the things that were said by people about how they despise this contract. This government went into signing another contract that is worse than the ExxonMobil contract, the contract with Tullow, where it's 1% royalty that is recoverable. So
it's no royalty.
It's no royalty, zero royalty. You know, they give you the 1%, and then they take it back from the profit oil. So it's a 0% royalty, the Tullow contract, and so that is where that is at now.
Then you have Trotman, who said he was
ordered. He said he was instructed, and
Mm-hmm.
that is, he didn't say who instructed him. Of course, the only person who could instruct the minister to sign a contract will have to be Mr. Granger. Nobody else, I suspect. Now, the PPP position is, everything that we will do in government regarding the oil and gas sector is to protect the Guyanese people's interests. That is the fundamental framework. Everything we will do, and therefore, we will have a look at these contracts. We have to have a look at these contracts, because if we are saying that they're skewed in the interest of the expatriate people, then of course we will have to have a look, and the terms of contract going forward, contracts, will have to be different. We have said further that all the remaining oil blocks should be auctioned off, and that is how countries are. Dealing with it, where you will get the best price from companies who have an interest in the blocks that you have out there. And so we are saying that, listen, there should be no sweetheart deal, and we will have no sweetheart deal. So ExxonMobil and all the oil companies, they have already been informed from the People's Progressive Party civic side that, listen, everything we do, we will do it whilst we respect your investment, whilst we are open for investment into Guyana. We have an interest, the interest of the Guyanese people at heart, and therefore we have to protect. We will not operate, excuse me, in the framework of the Granger government dealing with the oil company. The other thing is that the Granger government, and people must know this, they sign a contract that deals only with oil. When when you're dealing with the output of the oil, you have a lot of gas. So we have no, and that is where you have countries, they have made their money in gas, not oil. Some countries, they focus on gas production and not oil production. And so we have to now go back to, that is Guyana, to Exxon, to have a discussion, to negotiate with them about how and what we do with the gas. Because there's nothing of that is not captured in the contract that was signed by the Granger government. So that is our position on the matter. Of course, you know we are working on our manifesto, and we have in the manifesto a section that is focused primarily on the oil and gas industry. And so when the manifesto is launched, people will see our thoughts on how the oil sector will function under a PPP civic government. And to say, Susan, to listeners, the only way we can bring some sanity to all the madness that you have happened under the Granger government in the oil and gas sector is by voting for the PPP, is by bringing an end to the Granger government, because they have shown that they don't have your interest at heart, and they are giving away our patrimony, as we go along in the oil and gas sector, and of course, so many other sectors that we would speak about tonight, because we wanted to address specifically this conference that's going to be held, where Guyanese will have no say. I'm talking about Guyanese. This exhibition is held in Guyana to discuss our oil and gas. And the ordinary man will have no say in this. It is the expatriates who will be discussing how they will deal with this, our country. And we cannot have that continue. And how we bring that to an end is when March 2nd arrive, we bring an end to Granger and this cabal. That is the only way, that's the only answer to this dilemma we find ourselves in regarding the oil and gas sector.
That's right, and you know, it's a real travesty because it doesn't only, what they're doing now doesn't only affect us today or tomorrow, but it affects us in the future. It affects us a long way down the line, and we should have had elections already. We should have had elections since March of this year, and we would have, you know, definitely prevented all of this from happening, but here we are. It's November 2019, and the elections are going to be held until March 2020. But as you rightly said, you know, these guys have to be stopped. Now the phone has been going, so we're going to go and we're going to hear some views from you, the viewers. Caller, good evening. Yes, good night. Go ahead.
Let's stop talking about the oil and deal with agriculture. Because the oil, if you look at it, don't make nothing in this country. Because agriculture will develop more better than the oil. Our next thing, when we all win, we put up agriculture bank. Thank you.
Okay, caller, thank you.
No, the point is, the caller is right. Our unlike Granger and his cabal, we don't have one basket for development. This cabal, one basket they have to develop, because every time they speak to the Guyanese people, they're talking about heaven arriving when oil start pumping. Our position is that the call is right. An agri-based economy is more fundamental than a petroleum-based economy, because outside of exporting, outside of making the country the breadbasket of the Caribbean that it has the potential, the most important element is food security, whereby as a nation, you are not dependent on any other state for the security of meal. That's what made America such a great country. The fact that America has set out where it has an agri-based economy primarily, that they're able to feed themselves.
Yes. Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient in all respect. And that is where we have to go. So the call is right. And when the manifesto is launched, you will see the programs and plans that we have for the agricultural sector, the development of the agricultural sector, the mechanization of the agricultural sector in large measure. Because when you're talking about agriculture for food security and agriculture for exportation in large amount, you have to mechanize how we do agriculture, how we do farming, as we call it. And that is how America has outpaced all the countries, because they have mechanized their agriculture. You would see in the United States, you have 10,000 acres, and you might have just husband and wife and children managing 10,000 acres, because it's fully mechanized activity. So you don't have all that labor-intensive activity to do.
And you know, the PPP has a plan not only for the oil and gas sector and for agriculture sector, but for every sector in our economy, especially those major pillars like mining and so on. And the presidential candidate, Mr. Irfan was talking about some of the plans he has in the health and education sector in terms of exporting our capabilities there and maximizing what we can do in terms of export. And this government, not to forget, the ridiculous tax that the export tax,
Yeah.
that they introduced. So they're clearly not interested in promoting our local products and in assisting local manufacturers. We have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
The gentleman with the contract with ExxonMobil, we said movement signed, and they didn't sign the gas part of it, the outside aisle. We can't have the contract to show the public.
I didn't catch Gary what you said.
Can you speak up a little bit, caller?
Gentleman next to you said government signed the gas, the oil part of the contract, and didn't sign the gas part. We can't have the contract to show the public.
Said no, the contract is the contract is a public document. After we fight the government for what, a year and a half, they made the contract available. These contracts just deal with the issue of oil.
None of the byproducts.
None of the byproducts. For that matter, Exxon will use most of the gas in the beginning to extract the oil. And now we're talking about bringing gas on shore to do electricity generation and all the other things. There is no gas contract with any one of these companies, caller. None.
I'd like to ask you something. ExxonMobil, right? Other than ExxonMobil is one of the largest oil companies in the world, right? That deals with this oil, right? Right? So if we don't have ExxonMobil here, right? Right? Maybe we don't have the money to buy an oil ship, this for sure, right? Because the economy is not so good as yet. So we don't have the money to buy an oil ship. So without ExxonMobil, how we might be able to get this oil and gas?
No. See, caller, we're not saying there should not be ExxonMobil here. We brought ExxonMobil here. The PVP brought ExxonMobil here. Okay? And we had an exploratory contract with them since 1999, signed by Janet Jagan as
Right.
So the point I'm making is that we are all open for foreign investment. What we are saying, whilst the investor look out for his fair share of his returns, whoever runs the government must ensure that the Guyanese people benefit substantially. That is the fundamental thing. And the contract so far that this government...
So much, right? I agree with that so much. But then people like me and you don't know what's behind the scenes of this contract signing with the government.
Well, the point is, that is the point. We should not have going on. If people are looking out for the country, then they shouldn't be behind the scenes operation, as you have said.
No,
right?
the government bring everything to the table.
No, the point I'm making is that, and you will know, I don't want to go long with this, that beginning the government was failing to make the contract available, public to the people of Guyana.
I think they made a lot of errors because they've never been in government before, and for the first time they get oil and gas in this country. And anybody who was in power at this moment would likely to make a mistake.
No.
This is my favorite caller, He calls me every week and we have
this is not a mistake. Mistake is...
All right, caller, we're going to respond
not a mistake. This is...
Okay.
Billions of US dollars cannot be a mistake. First point. Secondly is that the skills are available that we could have utilized in the negotiation. That is the issue. It is not a thing whereby you couldn't find the skills to negotiate properly on your behalf.
Bottom line is the foreigners don't know better than us. We must know how to protect our resources. The oil and gas contract is no different from any other contract that you would sign. You have to look out for yourselves.
That is the fundamental.
They are looking out for their investment.
And you have to
we
look
have
out
to
for
look
your...
out for our country, for our
It's a
resources.
simple. And Susan, you're a businesswoman. I'm in business. We sign contracts regularly, right? And we know when we signing contracts
Yeah,
with people,
absolutely.
we are having a negotiation and a discussion with the client. And whilst we want to do a fair job for him or her,
Correct.
we are ensuring in the contract that we protect our interests,
Right.
that we are properly paid for the work.
Both parties have obligations under a contract. You know, you have to think about it. If you're an ordinary guy and he's sitting at home, you think about it very practically. Both parties have obligations under a contract, but at some point you have to set out clearly what those obligations are and know where it ends. We don't have that provision in this contract. As Joe said earlier, there are no ring fencing provisions. So any expense that they throw at the government, we have to pick up the bill. If they jump on a plane to go home to visit their family, we have to pay that bill. So
Every expense.
Every expense.
And what for the viewers, these guys are so clever that what they're doing now, even with their employees and a lot of the international contractors that they've employed, to escape paying local tax and paying NIS, they rotate their employees.
Mm-hmm.
They don't allow them to spend more than 3 months. So they will not be in the tax net. They will not be in the net of the national insurance scheme. So you as an ordinary person, even a self-employed person, the NIS is behind you to pay NIS contribution. But all these guys who are coming in here under the auspices of these oil companies, they pay no taxes to this economy, to this country, and they are not subject to NIS regulation because the companies deliberately made these permanent workers temporary workers in a sense because of how they rotate them in and out.
And the British consultant who drafted the last, made the last
Local,
draft
yeah.
of the local content, he removed that requirement to pay
To ensure they pay
taxes
local
locally.
taxes
And before our local companies here even bid for a contract, you have to produce your NIS compliance
and your GRA compliance to participate
exactly
even
before you
as a
even
subcontractor.
bid. Right. So
So that is the
situation
unfair nature
ridiculous.
of the everything.
Caller, good evening.
I'd like to find out something.
Yes, go ahead.
If this illegal government have done so much good to people, why we have so much new party coming in now in this election?
Mm-hmm. Okay, caller. Thank you.
well, the point is, the good thing is, in passing, is that all the people who are now setting up their own shop, all of those persons were gleefully supporting Granger 2011 and 2015. So you're right in a sense that they recognized, but many of them, they have said...
Now they're desperate to,
Right.
to
They have said so many
separate
bad things
themselves.
about the PVP that they're embarrassed and ashamed, and they're desperate in separating themselves, as Susan is saying. So that is where we're at with that, and we call on people to participate. And as I said, many of the ills about the oil contract we spoke about tonight, we can only remedy them on this March 2nd by bringing an end to Granger and his cabal, this APNU, AFC government, and vote a People's Progressive Party civic government, who will protect the interests of the Guyanese people.
Because only the PPP has the support and the backing to remove them anyway. Don't waste your vote on any of these smaller parties. They can't impact the election in the way that it should be impacted. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening. We're so happy that you all finally decided upon the Vindia Prasad as the new Prime Minister, the PPP. We're very happy now that...
That is what has happened?
we-
I'm not aware of that.
You have more information than us because there is no such decision as far as we are aware.
No, we'll be hearing it all over that.
No. My friend, politics, you hear so many things all over. When you hear the People's Progressive Party, civic,
Yeah.
speaks on the matter, let me.
Yeah.
When you hear the party speaks on the matter, then the matter is authentic. Any other thing you hear,
Yeah.
whether via gossip, whether via the grapevine or wherever, just dismiss it.
But whenever you're done, it's a good choice. I feel you are making a good choice.
No, the point I'm making to you, don't get excited, please. Don't get excited. As far as I know,
Very excited because
as far as I know, I'm saying is that the General Secretary spoke to that matter and has indicated
Okay.
that that matter will be dealt with shortly. There is no information, no decision for the viewers of that like. We have presently, the People's Progressive Party, Civic, has not yet made a selection of who the running mate will be of the presidential candidate, Mr. Farali. That is the decision. The correct information, rather.
Caller, you're on the air.
good night, Susan.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Hamilton.
Good night, sir.
This question is to you. With all the knowledge about what ExxonMobil has been doing and these big oil companies have been doing in history, and all the knowledge you got with the corruption and the robbing these countries, how is it, with all the knowledge that we had about them, how is it that they could portray exactly the same thing upon us? And we could just sit down and we complain, the government can't do anything about it, knowing this is the intentions of these oil companies all over the world.
Well, you would note that
Okay, caller, thank you for your question.
inclusive of all the things that these companies they do is the fundamental word corruption. And if you follow the trend of all of these skullduggeries around the world with oil companies, you would see, including in that will be corrupt public officials, corrupt government officials, corrupt presidents, prime ministers, whatever, Africa, South America, wherever. And so it is compromised leaders. The type of thing that happens can only happen with corrupt politicians involved in negotiating on behalf of the state. That is the fundamental, that is the answer to that question. And therefore, I am saying, I don't know these guys could be so silly to sign that contract, the contract that they have signed. So it must be some other inducement that is responsible for them to sign that type of contract. So yes, you're right. All the information is out there. How the oil companies, and not just the oil companies, how the expatriate companies, when they come to your country, if they could get everything free, they will take it.
Right.
And it is for you who are in government to protect your patrimony.
Absolutely.
It is not for the other people to do that. And therefore, for us, people will say, why y'all don't beat up? We don't have to beat up ExxonMobil. We have to beat up the government of Guyana because they are representing our interests, not ExxonMobil.
It was their duty.
It was their duty to protect us.
Right. Joe, I forgot that I was signaled that we were out of time a while ago, but I got caught up in the discussion. Any closing remarks?
No, the point is, as we said, that tomorrow you will have this conference where we're starting at the Marriott. You know the Marriott has his own history. Granted, they were to make it a hospital because this was a bad investment. But anyhow,
now they love the Marriott.
They love the Marriott. They're enjoying life there. And you have this conference that will not in a positive way impact on the ordinary Guyanese life. And that is why we come to see it tonight, and we will speak more about it, that the ordinary child, single parent, ordinary man who has lost his work at Gaisuku, Troy Resources, wherever, this conference tomorrow is, like I said earlier, like the conference they had, what they call the Berlin Conference, where the colonial masters, they sat down and they determined how Africa must be split up and who will get what. That is what this conference is like, in my view, tomorrow, because it is the expatriate who will have most, if not all, of the say at this exhibition in the next 2 to 3 days. And we have to change that. And the way we will change doing business is by changing the government when the March 2nd comes, so that we ask our viewers to pay attention, and to when that day come, go and put your X next to the cup.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe.
Thank
It was
you
a
very much,
pleasure.
Susan.
And to all of you who are watching, thank you very much for joining us. Do join me again next week, same time, same place. Have a safe week.